I sat at the defense table. Stephanie's voice filled Department 12, steady and practiced, describing a man who couldn't balance a checkbook, couldn't remember what year it was, couldn't be trusted with his own affairs. My hands trembled against the oak surface. Parkinson's. 3 years now. The tremor made holding a coffee cup an exercise in concentration, made signing my name look like a child's scrawl. Judge Katz leaned forward, pen poised above Stephanie's guardianship petition. Behind me, the gallery held 40 witnesses. Rebecca Torres from First National, Tony Roselli, who'd known Linda for 25 years, Dr. Wolf, my neurologist. Several former colleagues from my engineering days sat in the third row. My father fumbled with his medications last week when I visited, Stephanie continued. Can't balance his checkbook. The tremors are getting worse. She touched the papers in front of her for emphasis, making eye contact with Judge Katz. Designer suit. Expensive jewelry that didn't match the rumors I'd heard about her finances. Margaret Chen sat beside me, silver hair pulled back, leather portfolio closed. She told me to wait. Let Stephanie build her case. Let her commit. The judge looked at me. Mr. Vance, do you have anything to present? I stood, slowly, hands shaking as I lifted the 3-inch binder from the evidence table. The clear cover read, 47-page evidence binder. Subtitle, 4 months of recorded conversations. Stephanie's face went white. My voice stayed steady despite the tremors. Your Honor, if I may approach? Love revenge stories. Subscribe and let's explore every day. Chapman and Sons Funeral Home. 9:15 a.m. I signed the guest book with my name barely legible. Parkinson's making the pen shake across the page. 120 mourners would come through those doors over the next 3 hours. I positioned myself by the entrance to greet each one. Linda died 3 weeks earlier. Brain aneurysm, 66 years old. She collapsed, reaching for Cheerios at the grocery store. The manager said she didn't suffer. I wasn't there to know if that was true. Paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. We married in 1980, 3 months after I graduated with my civil engineering degree. June 17, Justice of the Peace Wedding, 43 guests, reception at Linda's parents' house. Cost, $847 total. We spent the honeymoon fund on first month's rent instead. I was 25. She was 23, finishing her teaching credential. We raised 2 children in a 3-bedroom ranch house we paid off in 2003. Stephanie came first, then Derek 3 years later. $680,000. That's what we built together. My pension from 40 years designing bridges and water treatment facilities, $340,000. Linda's teacher retirement, $180,000. Home equity, $120,000. Savings, $40,000. Nothing fancy, just compound interest and not spending more than we earned. Senior project manager for the county. That was my final title before retirement. I designed municipal infrastructure across Southern California. Bridge 405 overpass, completed 6 weeks early, under budget. Riverside water treatment facility, caught a contractor's rebar miscalculation that would have failed inspection. Drainage systems that prevented flooding when El Nino hit. 40 years. 0 structural failures. Errors cost lives when you're designing structures. A bridge fails, people die. A water system contaminates, people get sick. Precision wasn't optional. It was the job. Linda balanced my technical precision with something I never mastered. She remembered Stephanie's 3rd grade teacher's birthday, knew which neighbors needed casseroles when someone died, could read Derek's moods from 3 words on the phone. I knew tensile strength and load-bearing capacity, and how much rebar a foundation required. Complementary partnership. That's what the marriage counselor called it when we went for a tune-up at year 30. Different skills, same direction. Stephanie was our golden child. Straight A's through high school. Real estate license at 23. Rode the housing boom to early success. Married Michael Portman at 28. 2 kids. Big house in a gated community. Derek showed promise but never followed through. Business degree from a state school. Then 3 failed ventures in 10 years. The organic meal kit operation lasted 9 months. The crypto mining venture, 14 months until the electricity bills exceeded revenue. Dropshipping consulting folded after 6 months when his 3 clients all requested refunds. We bailed him out twice. Belinda refused the 3rd time. Derek didn't speak to her for 8 months. Missed Thanksgiving. Skipped Christmas. She died while they were still halfway estranged. Parkinson's hit me at 65. Just tremors. My hands shake when I hold things. Makes signing my name look like a child's scrawl. Makes holding a coffee cup require concentration. But Dr. Patricia Wolf ran cognitive tests. 94th percentile for my age group. The disease affected my motor function, not my mind. I retired at 66 with full pension and benefits. Linda kept teaching until 65. Then we had a year together before the aneurysm took her. The house smelled like catered lasagna and funeral flowers. Voices in every room, but none of them Linda's. Someone had moved her reading chair to make space for the buffet. I'd be retreating to my basement workshop tonight. 200 vintage slide rules waiting, calculations that made sense when nothing else did. I made coffee for 2 that first morning after she died. Poured both cups before I remembered. Linda's mug sat on the counter until the coffee went cold. The funeral reception happened at our house. Stephanie and Derek handled the arrangements. Coordinated flowers. Managed the guest list. Greeted mourners with appropriate expressions of grief. Stephanie's black dress had the subtle sheen of expensive fabric. Nordstrom, maybe Saks. Not department store. Her makeup looked professionally done. She moved through the living room with real estate agent professionalism, hugging Linda's teaching colleagues and our neighbors from 30 years. I noticed her phone out. Not obvious, just casual photos like she was documenting the day. But I saw which angles she chose. The built-in bookshelves, the updated kitchen, the hardwood floors Linda and I refinished in 2015. Real estate agent angles. Derek asked questions about accounts, retirement funds, life insurance payout, survivor benefits from my pension. He framed it as help, offering to manage paperwork during my grief, making sure I had everything organized. Dad, where do you keep the pension paperwork? I can help organize everything. What about Mom's life insurance beneficiary forms? Specific questions, not general condolences. He wanted numbers, account locations, access procedures. Stephanie's taking photos because she's documenting Mom's funeral. That's normal. Derek's asking about accounts because he wants to help. That's what children do. I was seeing threats that didn't exist. I filed the observations away. Engineers have it. Document everything. Note discrepancies. But the suspicions felt like grief paranoia. My children wouldn't exploit their mother's death. 2 weeks after we buried Linda, I sat in my basement workshop at 11 p.m. The basement had its own smell, WD-40 and sawdust. Coffee mug stains on the workbench from 40 years of late-night calculations. Linda never came down here. My space I performed calculations for a hypothetical suspension bridge, 3-span design across a theoretical river. The math required concentration, tensile loading, environmental factors, material stress tolerances. The numbers left no room for anything else. My phone rang. First National Bank displayed on the screen. Rebecca Torres. I recognized her voice. She'd helped us refinance the mortgage in 2005, attended Linda's funeral 2 weeks earlier, brought a casserole that sat untouched in my freezer. Mr. Vance, I'm calling about some concerns regarding recent account activity. Professional voice. Careful phrasing. The tone people use when something's wrong, but they can't say it directly. What concerns? Your son Derek came in today with power of attorney documents, requesting access to your accounts. I never authorized that. I thought you might say that. She paused. The signature looked off to me. Wrong pressure points. I told him we needed processing time for verification. Then I pulled your transaction history and $12,000 transferred out over the past 2 weeks. 4 separate transactions ranging from $1,800 to $4,500. But the history shows this started 6 weeks ago. Total theft appears to be $127,000 across 37 transactions, all to accounts in your children's names. I stood. The basement workshop closed in around me. The slide rules on my workbench offered no answers this time. When did the transfer start? 14 days after your wife's funeral. 14 days. 2 weeks of appearing supportive, handling arrangements, playing grieving children. Then they started moving money. I need copies of everything. Transaction records, the forged power of attorney, account access logs, all of it. I'll have it ready tomorrow morning. Mr. Vance, I'm sorry. Your wife was always kind to me. This isn't right. I hung up and stared at the slide rules arranged on my workbench. K&E, Log Duplex DS T-Trig from 1952. Mahogany frame, celluloid scales perfectly aligned. I calculated the water main specifications for the Riverside project using this exact rule in 1987. Linda's death had removed the one person who could shame our children into decency. Her absence created opportunity they'd decided to exploit. The grief was still there, but underneath it now, something else. I recognized the feeling from bridge inspections when measurements didn't match blueprints. I opened my laptop and created a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, destination account. Column D, authorization method. Column E, evidence file location. This was a bridge inspection now. Document every crack. My hands shook as I typed. Parkinson's made the cursor jump, but the spreadsheet column stayed straight. I requested the full transaction history from Rebecca Torres that morning. The encrypted PDF arrived at 10:47 a.m. 6 weeks of unauthorized transfers. 37 separate transactions totaling $127,000. Each line in the bank system showed destination accounts in Stephanie and Derek's names. I opened the PDF. 6 weeks of transactions, each line a small theft. My hands shook reaching for the mouse. Then I opened Excel. I created a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, destination account. Column D, authorization method. Column E, notes. First transfer, $4,200, 14 days after Linda's funeral. Destination, Stephanie Vance Portman, joint account. Authorization, online transfer with saved password. Second transfer, $8,100, 3 days later. Destination, Derek Vance personal checking. Authorization, phone banking with security questions. Third transfer, $5,800. Fourth, $12,300. Fifth, $7,600. I entered the first date. Backspace. The cursor had jumped 3 cells. Parkinson's turned every keystroke into a small battle. But the formulas calculated correctly. Same methodology I'd used for water main specs, now tracking theft. The pattern showed calculation. No single transfer large enough to trigger automatic fraud alerts. Amounts varied between $4,000 and $18,000. Spread across both checking and savings. Different authorization methods to avoid pattern recognition software. They'd studied the bank's fraud detection protocols. 4 decades of engineering work taught me to recognize structural failures before collapse. Small cracks in concrete, rust patterns indicating water intrusion, load measurements that didn't match blueprints. This was a structural failure. Just in a family instead of a bridge. I printed the spreadsheet, filed it in a new folder labeled Financial Records. Then I sat at my kitchen table and waited. Stephanie arrived 3 days later. No phone call. Just knocked on the front door at 2:15 p.m., wearing a navy pantsuit and carrying her leather portfolio. "Dad, I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check on you," the coffee maker hissed. Steam rose between us. I poured with both hands to keep the stream steady. 2 cups. My hands trembled. Some spilled on the counter. "Here, let me get that." Stephanie grabbed paper towels, wiped the spill. Her voice had that careful brightness people use with children and the elderly. "You're managing okay? Taking your medications?" "I manage." She sat at the kitchen table, opened her portfolio, pulled out papers I recognized as estate planning templates, the kind real estate agents keep for elderly clients. "Dad, I've been thinking. You're handling so much alone now that Mom's gone. Bills, accounts, medical appointments. What if we simplified things? Added me as a co-owner on your main accounts, just in case something happens and you need help?" I sipped coffee, said nothing. It's standard planning for someone your age. Michael's parents did the same thing. Makes everything easier if there's an emergency. "I'll think about it. Dad, you're shaking so much you can barely hold that cup. What if you have an accident? What if you need surgery and can't access your accounts? I'm trying to protect you." The word protect hung in the air. I set down the coffee cup. I said, "I'll think about it." She left 20 minutes later. I watched her BMW pull away, then went to my basement workshop. The Sony IKD PX470 digital recorders cost $49.99 each on Amazon. I ordered 3, prime shipping 2 days. The camera pens came from a different seller. Small enough to fit in a desk organizer cup. Battery life, 8 hours, continuous recording. 2 days later, the package arrived. The wedding photo on my living room bookshelf. Linda in white, me in my only suit. I positioned the Sony behind the frame. Lens aimed at chair height. Record button armed. The second went in my kitchen, tucked behind the microwave. The third in my home office, positioned on the shelf above my desk. The camera pens went in the desk organizer and the kitchen utensil holder. Lens aimed at chair height. Derek visited 4 days later, wearing designer jeans and an untucked button-down. He carried a laptop bag and that nervous energy he'd had since childhood. "Dad, got a minute? Want to run something by you?" I hit record on my phone. Set it face down on the coffee table. Like I'd been reading news, Derek pulled up a website on his laptop. Cryptocurrency trading platform. Charts showing price movements over 24 hours. So here's the thing. There's this arbitrage opportunity in the crypto space. Buy on one exchange, sell on another, pocket the spread. I'm talking 4, maybe 5% returns daily. Your retirement accounts are earning what? 2% annually? That's losing money to inflation. My accounts are fine. Dad, you've got over $500,000 just sitting there. That's dead capital. We could optimize that. Get it working harder. I know a guy who's crushing it in this space. Not interested, he shifted forward. Think about it strategically. You and Mom built this nest egg, but what's the legacy? Bridges nobody remembers? Or empowering your kids to build something generational? I stood. You should go. After he left, I played back the recording. His voice clear through my phone speaker. Your retirement accounts are earning what? 2% annually? He knew the exact return rate. Someone had been checking my statements. I transferred the audio file to my laptop, created a new folder, audio evidence, started a transcript document with timestamps. Over the next 4 months, I recorded 15 conversations. We two, Stephanie and Derek, together in my living room. Their voices carried through to where I'd positioned the recorder behind the bookshelf. Stephanie, the documents need to match the timeline. If we're saying he gave verbal authorization in September, the bank records have to show activity from that period. Derek, the notary thing was a problem. Rebecca at the bank caught it, said she needed processing time. Stephanie, processing time means she's checking with him. We need to move faster. Week 5, Derek alone in my kitchen while I pretended to nap upstairs. He spoke into his phone, voice relaxed. The old man's shaking too much to notice the account transfers. Mom dying was actually perfect timing. He's too grief-fogged to track anything. No emotion in his voice. Just logistics. I listened to that recording 3 times. Perfect timing. My wife's death as opportunity. Week 9, both children in my home office. I'd left to use the bathroom, camera pen recording from the desk. Stephanie, his Parkinson's is a gift, honestly. Makes the whole incompetence thing believable. Look at how he fumbles with his medications. Derek, you think a judge will actually buy it? Stephanie, Derek, he shakes so much he can barely hold a fork. No judge will believe he's competent to manage $600,000. We file the petition, present the medical evidence, and this gets resolved in our favor. I made copies of every recording, uploaded encrypted backups to 3 separate cloud services, printed transcripts on acid-free paper for the binder I was building. The research took 2 weeks. Public records showed Stephanie's McMansion had entered foreclosure proceedings. 3 missed payments. Purchase price, $1.2 million. Current value, $860,000. She was underwater by $340,000. Derek's business records showed a pattern. 3 LLC registrations in 5 years. All dissolved. The dropshipping consulting operation had filed for bankruptcy 6 months ago. Court documents listed $87,000 in unpaid debts to investors who'd bought his course on passive income. Financial desperation explained the theft. My children faced consequences from their own choices and decided my retirement accounts were the solution. Week 16 delivered the breaking point. I was in my basement workshop when Stephanie and Derek arrived upstairs. They didn't know I was home. My truck was at the mechanic for an oil change. I stood at my workbench, slide rules pushed aside. The floor vent carried every word from the kitchen above. I turned on the workshop radio to mask any sound from below, then activated the recording app on my phone. Stephanie's voice carried through the vent, clear and practiced. Okay, let's go through this one more time. The judge is going to ask specific questions. Derek, what do you say when he asks about Dad's daily functioning? Derek, I say I've observed increasing confusion. He forgets to take his medications. Last week he left the stove on for 3 hours. Asked me what year it was. Good. Specific details make it believable. What else? The tremors are getting worse. He dropped his coffee cup twice during my last visit. Can't sign his name without the whole page shaking. Stephanie, and if they ask why we're filing now, because Mom was managing everything before she died. Without her, he can't handle basic tasks. We're concerned he'll hurt himself or lose everything to scammers. Right, this is about protection, not money. We're loving children making a hard choice for our father's safety. I climbed the basement stairs. My hands shook, gripping the railing. Not from Parkinson's this time. The tremor came from somewhere else. They were planning guardianship, rehearsing testimony, fabricating incidents that never happened. The stove story, false. My medication routine hadn't changed in 3 years. The coffee cup incidents, invented. I'd never asked Derek what year it was. They would declare me incompetent, liquidate my accounts to pay Stephanie's mortgage and Derek's investors, put me in memory care if I resisted. Linda's voice in my head, document everything. She'd always been the one who kept records. School permission slips, tax returns, medical histories, a lifetime of careful documentation I'd taken for granted. That night, I assembled the binder in my workshop. 3-inch capacity, navy blue cover, clear front sleeve holding a title page I'd typed and printed, documentation of financial exploitation, Harold J. Vance versus Stephanie Vance Portman and Derek Vance, Section 1, Financial Records. Color-coded green tab, bank statements, transaction spreadsheets. Rebecca Torres's fraud report, 37 pages in sheet protectors. Section 2, audio transcripts, yellow tab, 15 conversations, timestamped and verbatim. Audio files saved to US ESB drive in back pocket. Section 3, engineering calculations. Blue tab, AutoCAD files proving cognitive function. Bridge designs created during alleged incompetence period. Professional work samples dated and time-stamped by software. Section 4, medical records. Red tab, Dr. Wolf's evaluation reports. Cognitive testing results showing 94th percentile. Documentation separating motor symptoms from mental capacity. Section 5, forensic document analysis. Orange tab, placeholder for expert report on forged power of attorney. To be completed. Section 6, witness statements. Purple tab, Rebecca Torres's written account. Space for additional testimony. Sheet protector, document, 3-hole punch. Each page required both hands. The binder grew heavier as sections filled. 47 pages total when I finished. Margaret Chen had handled Linda's and my estate planning for 20 years. She'd attended the funeral, brought a casserole I never touched. She knew our assets. She knew our intentions. She knew my children. I called her at 9:47 p.m. Margaret, I need litigation representation. My children are stealing from me, and they are about to file for guardianship. I have evidence. Silence for 3 seconds. Then, her voice calm and firm. What kind of evidence? Bank records showing $127,000 in unauthorized transfers. Audio recordings of them planning the guardianship petition. Proof they forged my signature on power of attorney documents. Medical records showing I'm cognitively intact. 4 months of documentation. Harold, how much of this have they compiled? All of it. 47 pages. Organized, indexed, time-stamped. Another pause. I'll come by next week after you've gathered more evidence. Don't touch anything else. Don't confront them under any circumstances. We document everything and let them commit fully to their false narrative. They're going to file. I know. Let them. The further they go, the harder they fall. And, Harold, the fact that you've built this case file tells me everything I need to know about your competence. We're going to destroy them. I hung up and looked at the binder on my workbench. The clear cover reflected overhead light. Navy blue spine aligned. 4 decades of engineering had taught me one lesson above all others: measure twice, cut once. Get the data right before you act. A bridge built on flawed calculations fails. A case built on incomplete evidence loses. I had complete evidence now. Let them file their petition. Let them present their lies. Let them commit to the incompetence narrative in front of a judge. Then I'd present my measurements and watch their structure collapse. I arrived at Roselli's 15 minutes early. The strip mall parking lot held the same cracks in the asphalt. Linda and I had walked over for 25 years. Monthly dinners here. 3rd booth on the left. Red vinyl seats that squeaked when you slid across them. Tony Roselli looked up from the host stand. 73 now, maybe 74. Gray hair combed straight back. Restaurant polo shirt with a small marinara stain near the collar. He'd owned this place since before Stephanie was born. Harold. He came around the stand, gripped my shoulder. Good to see you. You doing okay? Getting by. The tremor made the host stand wobble. I shoved my hands deeper into my pockets. Expecting my kids for dinner tonight. Might be a difficult conversation. Tony's expression shifted. He'd attended Linda's funeral. Brought lasagna I never touched. He knew what the past 6 months had been. You need anything, you let me know. Could you keep an eye on things? From the counter, maybe. Don't make it obvious. He studied my face for 3 seconds. For Linda, yeah, I'll watch. The booth was empty. 3rd from entrance. Same checkered tablecloth. Framed Roselli family photos covered the walls around it. 40 years of restaurant history. Frank Sinatra played through overhead speakers, volume low enough for conversation. Tony positioned himself at the counter with a clear view, pulled out his phone like he was checking inventory. I sat facing the door. Stephanie and Derek arrived together at 6:17. Coordinated entrance. Stephanie wore a charcoal suit with subtle pinstripes, the kind of outfit that cost $800 at Nordstrom. 3 missed mortgage payments on her McMansion, but the suit looked new. Derek had on designer jeans and an untucked button-down, checking his phone every 30 seconds. They slid into the booth across from me. Stephanie dropped her leather portfolio on the table with a soft thump. Derek kept his phone in his hand. Dad, thanks for meeting us. Stephanie's voice had that careful brightness, professional concern. We ordered your usual. Chicken parmesan, extra marinara. The waiter brought 3 plates 10 minutes later. Stephanie's fork stayed beside her untouched chicken parmesan. Derek's condensation pooled under his water glass. Stephanie folded her hands on the table. Dad, We need to talk about some concerns we've been having about your well-being. I sipped water, said nothing. You forgot to take your medications when I visited last week. Remember? I found them still in the organizer at dinner time. And you seemed confused about what day it was. I take my medications every morning at 7:30. Dad, you left the stove on for 3 hours last Tuesday. Derek found it when he stopped by. The kitchen could have caught fire. Derek nodded. The burner was glowing red. You didn't even notice. I'd been at Dr. Wolf's office last Tuesday morning. Appointment confirmation in my phone. But I didn't mention that. Your tremors are getting worse, Derek said. Last visit, you could barely hold your coffee cup. You're not safe living alone anymore. Stephanie leaned forward. Her voice dropped. Dad, you're not fine. You can barely sign your name. Mother's gone, and somebody needs to make sure you don't hurt yourself or lose everything to scammers. Scammers. They'd moved $127,000 out of my accounts in 12 weeks, and Stephanie was worried about scammers. She pulled an envelope from her portfolio. Cream-colored paper, legal size. Split it across the checkered tablecloth. We've filed a petition for conservatorship. It's for your own good. The hearing is in 2 weeks. The envelope sat between us. Cream paper, legal size. I left it there. We've already consulted with estate attorneys about liquidating assets to fund proper memory care, Stephanie said. This is what Mother would have wanted. She'd want you safe and cared for. Derek's voice had that nervous edge he got when lying. Think of it as early inheritance, Dad. But we manage it responsibly. Make sure the money works for everyone. Early inheritance. My retirement accounts as their solution to foreclosure and business failures. I picked up my water glass, both hands to keep it steady. And if I contest this? Stephanie's expression shifted. The professional concern disappeared. Left calculation. Dad, you're 68 years old with Parkinson's. You shake constantly. No judge will believe you're competent to manage $680,000. This can be easy or this can be hard, but either way, we're protecting you from yourself. Her voice carried across the restaurant. 2 tables over, a couple stopped eating. Tony Roselli stood at the counter, phone down now, watching. I set the water glass on the table. Stood slowly. My hands trembled, gripping the table edge for support. Pulled 2 20s from my wallet, left them beside the untouched plates. $40 for 3 meals nobody would eat. I will see you in court. Stephanie smiled. Full confidence, no hesitation. Dad, you can barely hold a fork. You're not going to win this. I walked through the restaurant at my own pace. Past the other diners watching now. Past Tony Roselli, who met my eyes with something that looked like anger on my behalf. Out the door into the parking lot where transmission fluid mixed with cooling asphalt. Someone's catalytic converter needed work. My truck sat under the lamppost where I'd parked it. I opened my phone and typed 5 words to Margaret Chen. It's time. Deploy everything. Her response came before I reached my truck. Understood. Don't engage further. See you tomorrow, 9 a.m. I sat in the driver's seat with the door open. The restaurant lights glowed through the window. Stephanie and Derek still in the booth, probably discussing how that went. Probably satisfied with my performance as a confused old man who wouldn't fight back. Tony Roselli stepped outside, walked to my truck. Harold, you need anything? A written statement. What you saw tonight. What you heard Stephanie say. Dated and signed. He pulled a pen from his shirt pocket. I'll have it ready tomorrow. Linda deserved better than this. I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat. Didn't open it. Didn't need to. I knew what it said. Petition for conservatorship based on mental incompetence. Medical evidence of Parkinson's disease affecting cognitive function. Concerns about safety and financial management. Stephanie and Derek as proposed conservators. Lies built on a foundation of stolen money and rehearsed testimony. The basement workshop lights were still on from this morning. I'd left my engineering calculation notebook open on the workbench. Bridge stress analysis. Complex enough to require an hour of concentrated work. Completed 3 days ago while I was supposedly too confused to remember what year it was. The evidence binder sat on the shelf. 47 pages. 6 months of documentation. Section 2 contained 15 audio transcripts, including Stephanie's voice saying he shakes so much he can barely hold a fork. No judge will believe he's competent. She'd said it again tonight. Different words, same message. In front of witnesses this time. I pulled the binder down, added a new document to Section 6. Tony Roselli, witness statement pending. Expected delivery tomorrow. Margaret Chen's office tomorrow at 9 a.m. Time to stop documenting and start deploying. My hands shook, turning off the workshop lights. Not from fear this time. From the same feeling I'd had 40 years ago when a contractor submitted calculations that didn't match the blueprints, and I had to decide whether to sign off or report the discrepancy. I'd reported it. The bridge got built correctly. Nobody died from a preventable structural failure. This was the same calculation now. Different structure, same principle. Measure twice, cut once. I had my measurements. I arrived at Margaret Chen's office at 8:30 a.m., carrying the 3-inch binder. Navy blue cover, clear front sleeve showing the title page I'd typed 6 months ago. The tremor made the binder shift when I set it on the conference table. Margaret sat across from me, reading glasses already on. Silver hair pulled back tight. She opened to the table of contents without asking permission. The conference room windows showed the business park below, morning sun cutting precise shadows across empty parking spaces. Leather chairs gave off that furniture polish smell. Old paper. Coffee from a pot that had been sitting since 7 a.m. 9:15 a.m. She'd been reviewing for 45 minutes. The conference room windows showed the business park below, morning sun cutting precise shadows across empty parking spaces. She turned to Section 2. Yellow tab, audio transcripts. Her finger traced down the page, stopped at timestamp 14,000. Stephanie's voice in typed text. He shakes so much he can barely hold a fork. No judge will believe he's competent. Harold, this documentation meets prosecutorial standards. She closed the binder, met my eyes. We're not simply defeating guardianship. We're building a criminal case. I'd expected relief. Maybe vindication. Got neither. Just the same feeling as when a contractor's math didn't match the blueprints, and I knew what came next. 3 parts, Margaret said. First, we defeat the guardianship petition by proving competence and exposing financial motive. Second, we file an elder abuse report triggering criminal investigation. Third, we pursue full restitution plus damages. She pulled out her phone, typed a message. I'm calling in James Delacroix, forensic document examiner. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. I'd poured it when I arrived. Hadn't touched it since. Margaret's phone buzzed. He'll be here in 40 minutes. She flipped to Section 4. Red tab, medical records. Dr. Wolf's cognitive testing results showing 94th percentile. Margaret made notes on her legal pad, handwriting precise as typed text. Your daughter's entire case rests on conflating motor symptoms with cognitive decline. We destroy that with expert testimony. Patricia Wolfe will explain the distinction. Will it go to trial? Depends on how stupid they are. The evidence here is overwhelming. Most defendants take plea deals when faced with this level of documentation. James Delacroix arrived at 10:03. Late 40s, business casual, jeweler's loop on a chain around his neck. He carried a black case that looked like it held camera equipment. Margaret! He set the case on the table. Been a while. 3 years. That construction fraud case. She handed him the forged power of attorney. Derek Vance presented this to First National Bank 6 weeks ago. Rebecca Torres, the senior teller, flagged it as suspicious. Delacroix set up his equipment on the conference table. Magnification lamp, macro lens camera, reference binder containing paper stock samples and notary seal specifications. He examined the document under magnification for 3 minutes without speaking. Then he photographed it from 6 angles, adjusted the lighting each time. Where do I start? He looked at Margaret, then me. Paper stock is 24-pound laser, Georgia Pacific brand. They didn't start manufacturing this weight until March 2021. Your document is dated January 2021. My hands gripped the table edge. Impossible chronology. Exactly. Someone forged this recently and backdated it. He adjusted the magnification. Notary seal claims San Bernardino County. Harold, where were you that date and time? Margaret pulled Linda's funeral program from my binder. Orange County, Chapman & Sons Funeral Home. Sign-in sheet shows Harold arrived at 9:15 a.m. Notarization supposedly occurred at 10:30. That's 120 miles. Physical impossibility. Delacroix photographed the funeral program next to the forged document. But here's what really destroys them. He zoomed in on my signature. The magnified image showed on his laptop screen. Even pressure throughout. No variation in line weight. Parkinson's tremors create variable pressure points in signatures. The hand shakes, so some strokes press harder, some lighter. Natural variation. This signature shows uniform pressure. Someone traced it. From where? Margaret asked. My guess? Christmas card, birthday card, any signed document they had access to. They put the original under this page, traced with a pen. Amateur forgery won't survive expert analysis for 30 seconds. He typed notes into his laptop. The keyboard clicks filled the conference room. Outside, someone's car alarm went off in the parking lot. Boar chirps, then silence. I'll have a formal report ready by tomorrow. Photo exhibits showing the paper stock anachronism, the geographic impossibility, the signature pressure analysis. This will destroy their credibility completely. After Delacroix left, Margaret made phone calls. First to Rebecca Torres. Miss Torres, this is Margaret Chen, Harold Vance's attorney. I need a written statement documenting Derek Vance's behavior when he presented those forged documents. She listened, made notes. Nervous energy, checking his phone repeatedly, became defensive when you asked verification questions. Perfect. Have it notarized and send it to my office by end of day. Second call to Tony Roselli. Mr. Roselli, Margaret Chen. Harold mentioned you witnessed the restaurant confrontation. I need that in writing. Everything you saw and heard, especially Stephanie's exact words about Harold's competence. Tony's voice came through the speakerphone. She told him he could barely hold a fork, wasn't going to win. Cold as ice. Other diners stopped eating, maybe 4 tables. The couple by the window leaned closer to hear better. One guy at the bar shook his head when she said it. Document all of it. Date, time, booth location, what they ordered but didn't eat. Details matter. Third call to Dr. Wolf. Patricia, I need a medical affidavit explaining the distinction between motor symptoms and cognitive function in Parkinson's patients. Harold's case specifically. Dr. Wolf's voice carried that clinical precision I recognized from 3 years of appointments. His cognitive testing shows 94th percentile for his age group. The tremors are purely physical. Conflating the two is dangerous misinformation I deal with constantly. I'll have the affidavit ready tomorrow. Margaret ended the call, turned to me. Now I need you to demonstrate competence directly, not through test scores or expert opinions. Show me. I'd brought 3 slide rules in protective cases. Set them on the conference table. The 1967 K&E log Desitrig, the 1952 post-Versalog, the 1943 Hemi. Give me a calculation, I said. Margaret's paralegal opened his laptop. Margaret had requested the problem this morning after confirming I'd be demonstrating. 3. Span suspension bridge. Total length 800 meters. Calculate tensile loading for the main cables, assuming uniform distribution and 60-mile-per-hour wind resistance. I picked up the K&E. My hands shook, lifting it from the case. The bamboo frame caught overhead fluorescent light. I positioned the cursor, aligned the scales. Environmental load factor. Wind coefficient of 0.62 for 60 mile per hour sustained. Material stress coefficient for steel cable standard grade. Geometric distribution across 3 spans requires adjustment for center span bearing 80% of dynamic load. Safety margin. Multiplication, industry standard, 1.8 for public infrastructure. The calculation required 6 steps. My fingers moved along the scales while my hands trembled. The cursor jumped twice. I steadied it, continued. Muscle memory from 40 years. 4.7 million pounds, tensile force, distributed across paired cables with redundancy factor of 1.8. The paralegal's calculator clicked. He looked up. That's correct. Took you 38 seconds. Margaret checked her watch. Faster than the computer verification. I set the slide rule down, both hands to keep it steady. Stephanie claims, I can't remember what year it is, but I can calculate bridge specifications faster than your paralegal software. Margaret smiled. First time I'd seen it. That's what we show the judge. She pulled out a legal pad, started writing, Courtroom strategy. We let Stephanie present her complete case first. Every fabricated incident, every medical claim, every assertion of incompetence. Let her commit with specificity. Then we dismantle everything systematically. Medical expert testimony from Dr. Wolf explaining motor versus cognitive function. Forensic evidence from Delacroix proving forgery through paper stock dating and signature analysis. Financial records showing theft motive. Audio recordings demonstrating premeditated conspiracy. Engineering calculations proving advanced cognitive function. Character witnesses. And finally, you testifying and performing calculations live. She underlined something on her legal pad. Harold, in court, you must remain calm. Let the evidence speak. Your children are about to learn that underestimating you was the worst mistake of their lives. I drove home with Delacroix's preliminary findings in a manila folder on the passenger seat. Section 5 of my binder now complete. Forensic document analysis. Orange tab. The basement workshop lights came on with the pull chain. Same fluorescent flicker. Same workbench covered in slide rules and coffee stains. The smell of WD-40 and sawdust. Furnace clicking on in the corner, temperature dropping outside as afternoon turned to evening. I opened the binder, inserted Delacroix's report in sheet protectors. 47 pages complete. The forensic report filled the final section. The 1967 K&E log Desitrig sat in its case. I'd selected it for court. Manufactured the year I started my thesis project. Symbolic of a lifetime's precision. I practiced testimony standing at my workbench, speaking to empty air, rehearsing answers to questions Margaret said the judge would ask. How long have you had Parkinson's disease? 3 years. Does it affect your ability to manage finances? No, it affects my ability to hold a coffee cup. Can you explain these engineering calculations? Yes, they demonstrate structural analysis for a 3-span suspension bridge requiring understanding of tensile loading, material stress tolerances, and environmental factors. My voice stayed level on the third run-through, the tremor less noticeable when I focused on the words. Chapman Memorial Gardens closed at sunset. I arrived at 5:47. Autumn leaves scattered across the grass between headstones. Linda's grave in Section C, third row. The headstone read, Linda Marie Vance, 1957–223, beloved wife and mother. I knelt on the grass, placed chrysanthemums against the granite. Her favorite. I'm protecting what we built, Linda. I'm not letting them destroy your memory by stealing what we created together. The wind moved through the oak trees bordering the cemetery. Somewhere, a lawnmower ran. Someone maintaining the grounds before closing. Tomorrow, they find out what happens when you underestimate an engineer who spent 40 years checking calculations. I promise. The grass left damp patches on my knees when I stood. The sun touched the horizon, orange light across headstones. I walked back to my truck slowly, hands steadier than they'd been all day, with the evidence binder on the passenger seat. 49 pages, 6 sections. Department 12, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Department 12 smelled like floor polish and recycled air the morning of the hearing. 2 weeks after filing my countermotion, we were finally here. The oak paneling made footsteps sound hollow. Each step echoed despite the gallery filled with 40 witnesses. Rebecca Torres in the second row, navy blazer, hands folded in her lap. Tony Roselli, 3 seats down, restaurant polo shirt, arms crossed. Dr. Wolf, near the back, medical ID badge visible. 4 of my former engineering colleagues in the third row. Guys I'd worked bridge projects with 20 years ago. Stephanie sat at the prosecution table with Derek and their attorney. Worn briefcase, off-the-rack suit. He shuffled papers like this was routine. Another elderly parent, another concerned family, another guardianship approved without contest. Margaret Chen sat beside me. Silver hair pulled back, leather portfolio closed. The evidence binder rested on the table between us. 3 inches thick. Navy blue cover. Clear front sleeve showing my typed title page. My hands shook, gripping the table edge. Parkinson's made the oak grain jump under my palms. I kept both hands flat, pressure down, trying to minimize the tremor. Judge Roland Katz entered at 10:30. Black robes, reading glasses. 22 years on the bench visible in the patient way he settled into his chair. Everyone stood. The bailiff called court to order. Stephanie's attorney opened. Professional voice, practiced concern. Your Honor, We're here regarding Harold James Vance, age 68, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 3 years ago. Petitioners Stephanie Vance Portman and Derek Vance seek conservatorship due to their father's declining cognitive function and inability to manage his financial affairs safely. He gestured toward me. The tremor in my hands made it look convincing. Mr. Vance is a widower as of 6 months ago. Since his wife's death, he has demonstrated confusion about dates, difficulty with basic tasks, and concerning judgment regarding his finances. The petitioners believe their father requires protection for his own well-being. Judge Katz made notes, looked at me once. My hands trembled against the table. Stephanie took the witness stand. Charcoal suit, expensive jewelry that didn't match the foreclosure timeline Margaret had documented. She placed one hand on the Bible, raised the other, swore to tell the truth. Her attorney asked the opening question. Miss Portman, can you describe your observations of your father's recent behavior? Dad's been confused about what day it is when I visit. Last week, he asked me 3 times if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. He forgot to take his medications. I found them still in the organizer at dinner time. Has his condition affected his daily functioning? He can barely hold a fork. The tremors are getting worse. I'm worried he's going to hurt himself. Her voice carried that therapy speak polish. Concerned daughter making hard choices. He nearly caused a kitchen fire 2 weeks ago. Left the burner on for 3 hours. I only found it because I stopped by unannounced. What about his financial management? Dad can't balance his checkbook anymore. His handwriting shakes so much you can't read it. I'm concerned scammers are going to target him. The word scammers. $127,000 stolen while she worried about scammers. I kept my face neutral. Margaret had told me to let her commit completely to the narrative. Derek took the stand next. Nervous energy, checking his phone before the bailiff made him put it away. His testimony added details about my alleged confusion, my tremors, my inability to manage basic tasks. Last time I visited, Dad asked me what year it was. He couldn't remember if Mom had been gone 6 months or 6 weeks. False. All of it. But Derek's voice had conviction. He'd practiced this. Their attorney rested, sat down, with satisfaction visible in his posture. Routine guardianship, elderly man, Parkinson's disease, loving children. He expected approval in 20 minutes. Judge Katz turned to Margaret. Does counsel for Mr. Vance have questions? Margaret stood. A few, Your Honor. She approached Stephanie. Voice calm, professional. Miss Portman, how many mortgage payments have you missed on your home? Objection, relevance. Their attorney half stood. I'm establishing financial motive, Your Honor. I'll allow it, but keep it brief. Stephanie's voice hardened. That has nothing to do with my father's condition. Margaret moved on. Mr. Vance, how many business bankruptcies have you filed in the past 10 years? Derek's attorney objected again. Sustained. But the gallery had heard it. Seeds planted. Margaret called Rebecca Torres to the stand. Rebecca described Derek presenting forged power of attorney documents, his nervous behavior, the suspicious timing of large transfers. Her testimony was specific. Dates, amounts. Derek checking his phone repeatedly when she asked verification questions. Rebecca adjusted the microphone. Her hands didn't shake. Banking professional. 20 years experience. Testifying like she'd done this before. James Delacroix came next. Set up his laptop on the witness stand. Displayed magnified images of the forged document. The paper stock is Georgia Pacific 24-pound laser, manufactured starting March 2023. This document claims a January 2023 date. Physical impossibility. He showed signature comparisons. My real signature with variable pressure from Parkinson's tremors. The forged signature with uniform pressure throughout. Someone traced this from an exemplar. The notary seal claims San Bernardino County, but funeral records prove Mr. Vance was in Orange County that date and time. 120 miles away. He adjusted the laptop screen toward the judge. The signature filled the display, magnified 20 times. Even pressure, no variation. Forged. Stephanie's attorney objected 3 times during Delacroix's testimony. Overruled each time. The evidence was irrefutable. Judge Katz's expression had shifted. The initial sympathy gone. Sharp, investigative interest replaced it. Margaret called my name. I stood slowly, walked to the witness box. My hands shook, gripping the rail. The gallery watched every tremor. Margaret asked about the incident Stephanie described. I refuted each one with documentation. I take my medications every morning at 7:30. My pill organizer shows perfect compliance for 6 months. Dr. Wolf's office can verify. The kitchen fire never happened. I was at Dr. Wolf's office the day Derek claims he found the burner on. Appointment confirmation is time-stamped. I have never asked anyone what year it is. Margaret pulled up my AutoCAD files on the courtroom screen. Complex structural calculations, time-stamped March 15th. 3. Span suspension bridge design. Mr. Vance, can you explain these calculations? I walked through the methodology. Tensile loading coefficients. Dead load versus live load distribution. Wind shear calculations for lateral movement. Safety factor. Multiplication using Ashto standards. The numbers required concentration, but my voice stayed steady. The gallery murmured. Judge Katz leaned forward. Margaret walked to the evidence table. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Exhibit C bank records showing $127,000 transferred from Harold Vance's accounts to his children's accounts over 6 weeks. Beginning 14 days after his wife's funeral, she handed copies to the judge, to the court reporter, to Stephanie's attorney. His face changed reading the first page. Stephanie leaned forward in the witness box. Dad authorized those transfers. He wanted to help us. Do you have written authorization? It was verbal. He understood what we needed. Judge Katz looked at me. Mr. Vance, do you have anything to present? I stood slowly. I gripped the 3-inch binder with both hands. The clear cover caught overhead fluorescent light. The clear cover read, 47-page evidence binder. Subtitle, 4 months of recorded conversations. Color drained from Stephanie's face. Her hand gripped the witness box rail. My voice stayed steady despite the tremors. Your Honor, if I may approach? He nodded. I opened to Section 2. Yellow tab. Audio transcripts. Found the page I'd marked. Read her exact words aloud. Timestamp 1437, March 18th. Quote, he shakes so much he can barely hold a fork. No judge will believe he's competent. End quote. My voice stayed level. The transcript showed the conversation occurred while they planned this petition. Margaret lifted the small digital recorder. Your Honor, may I approach? Judge Katz nodded. She placed it on the court reporter's desk, pressed play. The courtroom went silent. Stephanie's voice came through the speakers. Clear, unmistakable. The same words I'd just read. Her discussing exploitation strategy with Derek. Planning how to present my tremors as incompetence. Calculating how to liquidate my assets. The recording played. Courtroom silent. except Stephanie's voice from the speaker. In the gallery, Rebecca Torres leaned forward. Tony Roselli shook his head. My engineering colleagues sat perfectly still. Judge Katz's jaw tightened. He set down his pen with deliberate slowness, stared at Stephanie for 3 seconds without blinking. Stephanie and Derek exchanged panicked looks. Their attorney stared at the transcript like he'd been ambushed. He had been. Margaret asked questions in calm voice. Each one stripped another layer from Stephanie's story. Stephanie tried one last move. Your Honor, my father clearly has the mental capacity to orchestrate this elaborate setup. That proves he doesn't need a conservatorship. The threat had no substance, no evidence, just desperation. Margaret closed her portfolio. No further questions, Your Honor. The defense rests. Judge Katz checked his watch. We'll take a 45-minute recess while I review the evidence. He stood. Everyone stood. His robe swept papers on his desk. He didn't look at Stephanie or Derek when he left the bench. Just gathered the evidence binder, held it like it weighed 10 pounds, and disappeared into chambers. I sat back down at the defense table. My hands still shook, but the tremor felt different now. 6 months of documentation, 47 pages, every recording, every transaction, every forged signature. All of it validated. All of it heard. Margaret touched my shoulder once. Said nothing. Didn't need to. The gallery filed out for recess. Rebecca Torres met my eyes. Nodded. Tony Roselli gave a small smile. My engineering colleagues stayed seated, watching Stephanie and Derek with expressions I recognized from construction sites when someone tried to cut corners on structural calculations. Judgment without words. The kind that sticks. Judge Katz returned at 11:45. The door to his chambers opened, and he walked to the bench carrying my evidence binder under one arm. His robes settled around him as he sat. The courtroom went silent. Stephanie sat rigid at the prosecution table. Derek picked at his thumbnail. Their attorney shuffled papers, checking his watch every 30 seconds, looking for an exit that didn't exist. Margaret's pen rested on her closed portfolio. She positioned herself at a slight angle, watching both the judge and Stephanie's table. Her expression showed nothing. I pressed my hands flat against the oak table. The tremor made my palms vibrate against the wood grain. Same Parkinson's that started this. Same tremor Stephanie had called proof of incompetence. This court has reviewed the evidence presented. Judge Katz's voice carried across the gallery. I find the following. He opened a folder. Not my binder. His own notes from the recess. The petition for conservatorship is denied. With prejudice. Stephanie's intake of breath was audible 3 rows back. I find clear and convincing evidence that Harold James Vance possesses full cognitive capacity and decision-making ability. His Parkinson's disease affects motor function only. There is no cognitive impairment whatsoever. This petition was filed in bad faith, with financial exploitation as the primary motive. The judge turned a page. Furthermore, the petitioners are hereby ordered to return $127,000 to Harold Vance's accounts. Full restitution within 30 days. Color drained from Stephanie's face. Her hand gripped the witness box rail, knuckles showing bone white through the skin. Additionally, this court is referring this matter to the Orange County District Attorney for criminal prosecution. He looked directly at Stephanie. California Penal Code, Section 470. Forgery. Stephanie's eyes widened. Government Code, Section 8214.1, Dotary Fraud. Dotary Fraud. Derek stopped picking his thumbnail. Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 506030. Elder Financial Abuse. Their attorney closed his briefcase. Judge Katz removed his reading glasses. The aggravating factors are substantial. Family relationship. Exploitation of a medical condition. Premeditated conspiracy. Theft of over $100,000. Elder abuse by family members carries enhanced penalties under California law. He signed something I couldn't see from my angle. A restraining order is hereby issued. Stephanie Vance. Portman and Derek Vance are prohibited from contacting Harold Vance or approaching within 100 yards except through legal counsel. Stephanie stood. Your Honor, Ms. Vance Portman, sit down. The judge's voice cut through her protest. I suggest you consult a criminal defense attorney immediately. This court is appalled by your conduct. He looked at the bailiff. Please provide the district attorney's contact information to the court reporter for formal referral. Margaret stood. Your Honor, if I may, we've filed a civil lawsuit this morning. Mr. Vance is seeking return of the stolen funds, plus interest, attorney fees, damages for emotional distress, and punitive damages under California's elder abuse statute. Their attorney stood. Your Honor, I must withdraw from representing Beau's petitioners. Ethical rules prohibit me from continuing in matters involving fraud. He gathered his papers and left the prosecution table. Stephanie sat alone now. Derek had moved to a gallery seat during the attorney's exit. The gavel came down. This matter is concluded. I stood when everyone else did. The gallery filed past. Rebecca Torres met my eyes. Nodded. Once. Tony Roselli smiled. Dr. Wolf touched my shoulder walking by. Outside, in the marble hallway, Michael Portman waited with another man in a gray suit. He'd made his decision during my testimony yesterday, his attorney told me later. Michael approached Stephanie as she came through the courtroom doors, manila envelope in his attorney's hands. These are divorce papers. My attorney negotiated immunity for my testimony in the criminal case. Stephanie took the envelope like it might burn her. Michael, we can. My cooperation purchased favorable custody terms. Emma and Jack stay with me. He turned and walked away. His attorney followed. Derek's phone rang. He answered, listened, went pale. You're suing me for the consulting course refunds? I saw the news coverage, linked my fraud charges to that business. Yeah, he ended the call. Looked at Stephanie. They'd run out of people to blame. The district attorney filed charges 6 days later. Margaret called to tell me. Both children charged with forgery, notary fraud, elder financial abuse. Enhanced sentencing recommendations due to family relationship. Stephanie couldn't make the restitution payment. Her assets were frozen by court order. She filed bankruptcy. Margaret explained the elder abuse debt was non-dischargeable under federal law. Bankruptcy wouldn't help. The California Real Estate Board suspended her license pending criminal resolution. After conviction, they revoked it. 20 years of career work ended with a form letter. 4 months later, Stephanie's trial began. Derek had pleaded guilty in exchange for testimony against her, his statement becoming the prosecution's roadmap. The prosecutor offered him 18 months county jail and 5 years probation. He took it. Stephanie's trial lasted 3 days. Michael testified about conversations he'd overheard. The audio recordings played in court. James Delacroix presented forensic evidence. The jury convicted on all counts. Sentencing happened on a Tuesday. 3 years, California State Prison, eligible for parole after 18 months. The judge cited exploitation of a vulnerable adult as an aggravating factor requiring actual incarceration. Her Pinterest account disappeared the day after sentencing. Someone had linked luxury living simplified to the convicted elder abuser. 87,000 followers became zero overnight. Profile photo, boards, years of carefully curated lifestyle images. Gone in the time it took to click delete account. The civil judgment came through 2 months later. $381,000. Tripled under California's elder abuse statute. Margaret filed wage garnishment orders. Whatever Stephanie and Derek earned for the rest of their lives, a portion would flow back to me. Michael brought Emma and Jack to visit on a Saturday. 8 and 6 years old, Linda's only grandchildren. They asked careful questions about where Mommy was. He'd told them age-appropriate explanations. Mom made bad choices. She's facing consequences. Grandpa Harold is okay. I showed them my slide rule collection. Emma liked the one with the yellow celluloid scales. Derek's entrepreneurial dreams ended the day his conviction became public record. No business licenses with a felony. No investor trust with a fraud conviction. He worked retail now. His wages garnished before he saw them. $340,000 restored to my accounts. $127,000 returned. $213,000 in additional damages. Attorney fees reimbursed. My financial position was better than before the theft. The same people who witnessed Stephanie's threats at Roselli's saw the news coverage. Conviction. Sentencing. Career destruction. The community that might have sympathized with a concerned daughter now watched a convicted criminal lose everything. They'd used my trembling hands as proof I couldn't manage money. The judge used those same hands to sign the restraining order. Engineering precision. Measure twice, cut once. I sat at my workbench 14 months after Linda's death, 1 year after the verdict. The basement workshop smelled the same. WD-40, sawdust, coffee stains on wood. My hands trembled holding the slide rule. Parkinson's hadn't changed. The tremor stayed constant. The tremor that once symbolized vulnerability now marked perseverance. Same shake, different meaning. The $340,000 civil judgment sat in a foundation account. Triple damages under California's elder abuse statute. I'd named the foundation after Linda. Her legacy, protecting others the way I'd protected what we built. The Linda Vance Foundation for Elder Financial Abuse Prevention. Margaret Chen served on the board. We funded legal representation for seniors facing family exploitation. Pro bono cases through Margaret's practice. I taught victims my spreadsheet method. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, evidence location. Engineering precision applied to protection. My phone showed a photo from yesterday. Emma and Jack at Michael Portman's house. Supervised visits twice monthly. The kids asked specific questions about their mother at first. Where did Grandma Stephanie go? Michael told them age-appropriate truth. Mom broke laws. She's facing consequences. Grandpa Harold is safe and wants to see you. I'd created college funds for both. $50,000 each. Independent trustee managing the accounts. No parental access. Their education protected regardless of their mother's imprisonment. The precision thinking that saved me during the investigation now had a new purpose. Teaching filled Tuesday evenings. Community college classroom. 12 students. Half were engineers wanting analog backup skills. Half were seniors proving their minds stayed sharp despite aging bodies. I demonstrated precision thinking. They practiced methodology. Dr. Wolf used my case in her medical presentations. Parkinson's and competence. Motor symptoms versus cognitive function. The dangerous misinformation I'd fought against. Rebecca Torres managed First National's downtown branch now, promoted after her ethical handling of my case. She'd implemented enhanced elder abuse detection protocols, systematic changes preventing future exploitation. Margaret's practice saw increased referrals after the trial publicity. She specialized in elder abuse defense now. My vindication created broader impact. My engineering colleagues formed a breakfast group. Monthly meetings at the diner near the old county offices. Professional relationships renewed. Social connections rebuilt after the grief isolation. I'd updated my estate plan last week. Margaret drafted new documents. 40% to the grandchildren's education trusts. $68,000 each at current value. 40% to Linda Foundation. $272,000. 20% to an engineering scholarship at my alma mater. $68,000. Numbers that would compound over decades. Stephanie and Derek were explicitly disinherited. The letter explained in 3 pages. 47 documented instances of theft. 6 months of recorded conspiracy. $127,000 stolen. Love requires accountability. Your choices severed what remained. Chapman Memorial Gardens closed at sunset. I arrived at 5:47. Autumn leaves scattered across the grass between headstones. Linda's grave in section C, 3rd row. The headstone read, Linda Marie Vance, 1957-20223, beloved wife and mother. I knelt on the grass, placed chrysanthemums against the granite. Her favorite. The foundation helped its first client last month, I said to the granite. Margaret represented her pro bono. The daughter had forged power of attorney documents. Sound familiar? Wind rattled the oak branches overhead. Acorns dropped on headstones 3 rows over. Emma's reading above grade level. Jack plays soccer. Michael brings them by twice a month. I knelt on the grass. I couldn't save our children from themselves, but I protected what we built together. I drove home as darkness settled. The basement workshop lights came on with the pull chain. 9 p.m. Neighborhood quiet except for dogs barking 2 houses down. I opened a fresh Moleskine grid notebook under the workshop's fluorescent hum. Same type I'd used for 40 years of structural calculations. Fresh structural analysis. A hypothetical water treatment facility this time. The pen shook in my grip. Same tremor, same Parkinson's. But my mind stayed sharp. The calculations came precisely. Load factors, material specifications, safety margins. That was the difference they couldn't see until too late.